Two candidates, Richard Nixon, the experienced vice president, and John F. Kennedy, the rising senator, faced off in one of the closest elections in American history. With Cold War tensions rising and the first ever televised debates capturing the nation's attention, this wasn't just another election. How did Kennedy overcome doubts about his youth and faith to win the presidency? And what role did those historic debates play in tipping the scales? In 1960, America headed to the polls for the 44th presidential election, and the political landscape was shifting in big ways. After 8 years of liking Ike, President Dwight Eisenhower had completed his 2 terms, meaning he couldn't run again. His vice president, Richard Nixon, was ready to step into the spotlight and continue the Republican legacy. This election was also the first to feature both Alaska and Hawaii as voting states, and for the first time ever, the candidates would face off in televised debates, adding a whole new dynamic to the race. With the Cold War tensions looming, Americans were left to reconsider Eisenhower's approach to Moscow and how the next president would lead the country through such turbulent times. Several Republicans backed Nelson Rockefeller, the governor of New York, and a member of the wealthy Rockefeller family. Rockefeller represented the liberal moderate wing of the Republican Party. After he withdrew from the race, Nixon easily secured the Republican nomination. However, he was concerned about winning over the Rockefeller Republicans. To address this, Nixon met with Rockefeller to align on key issues, effectively positioning himself as a proponent of big government. Nixon chose Henry Cabot Lodge Jr., the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, as his running mate. Lodge was well known, being the grandson of Senator Henry Cabot Lodge and a descendant of a politically prominent family. The Democrats, eager to reclaim the White House after 8 years of Republican control, knew they needed to nominate a candidate who could truly energize the party. As the primary season unfolded, a number of new faces emerged, but few managed to ignite real excitement. Pat Brown, the governor of California, managed to secure the nomination in his state, but lacked the spark needed to inspire the nation. Stuart Symington, a senator from Missouri, was slightly more engaging, but still fell short of rallying widespread enthusiasm. Then there was Adlai Stevenson, who had already carried the party's banner in 2 previous elections, only to lose both times. His appeal had significantly faded, and Democrats were wary of backing him once again. Wayne Morse, a senator from Oregon, received a warmer reception due to his straightforward, independent approach, but even he failed to stand out as a true frontrunner. On the other hand, Lyndon B. Johnson, the powerful Senate Majority Leader from Texas, generated more excitement. Johnson's political experience and connections made him a formidable contender, particularly in the South, where he commanded significant influence. Similarly, Hubert Humphrey, a senator from Minnesota, drew attention with his progressive ideals and commitment to civil rights. But despite all these options, there was one candidate who electrified the Democratic Party and captivated the nation: John F. Kennedy. At just 43 years old, Kennedy brought a sense of youth, vitality, and optimism that the other candidates simply couldn't match. His eloquence, good looks, and modern campaign tactics, especially his strong presence on television, helped him cut through the noise of a crowded field. Despite doubts about his Catholic faith and relatively young age, Kennedy's ability to connect with voters and his vision for America's future made him the candidate who truly energized the Democratic Party. The stage was set for a high-stakes showdown between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy, both attracting large, enthusiastic crowds. Nixon, determined to reach every voter, promised to campaign in all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii, the newest additions to the Union. However, this ambitious pledge backfired when he injured his knee, leading to a severe infection that sidelined him for 2 weeks. Some historians argue that this decision wasted valuable time in states where he had little chance of winning, while Kennedy gained momentum in key battlegrounds. A crucial part of Kennedy's strategy was the involvement of Lyndon B. Johnson, who campaigned vigorously for him in the South. helping to shore up support where Kennedy's Catholic faith was a concern. Despite Johnson's efforts, Kennedy continued to face criticism, particularly around his age and religion. Much like Al Smith in 1928, many Protestants were reluctant to support a Roman Catholic candidate, adding another layer of complexity to Kennedy's path to the presidency. The 1960 election is often remembered for its groundbreaking televised presidential debates, which were the first ever held during a general election. All 4 debates, broadcast live from September 26th to October 21st, marked a turning point in how campaigns were conducted. In the past, candidates relied on events, newspaper articles, and radio broadcasts to connect with voters. But now, television brought them directly into Americans' living rooms. Qualities like charisma, appearance, and confidence suddenly became just as important as policy. In the first debate, a fascinating divide emerged. Radio listeners felt Nixon had won, while television viewers overwhelmingly favored Kennedy. Nixon, who was still recovering from his knee injury and exhausted from campaigning, appeared pale, sweaty, and uncomfortable under the studio lights. In contrast, Kennedy looked rested, confident, and tanned, presenting the image of a youthful, vibrant leader. The impact of television on the election was undeniable, as it allowed voters to not only hear but see the candidates, and in doing so, it elevated Kennedy in the eyes of the public.
Smith, Nixon. In the election of 1860, Abraham Lincoln said the question was whether this nation could exist half slave or half free. In the election of 1960, and with the world around us, the question is whether the world will exist half slave or half free, whether it will move in the direction of freedom, in the direction of the road that we are taking, or whether it will move in the direction of slavery. I think it will depend in great measure upon what we do here in the United States, on the kind of society that we build, on the kind of strength that we maintain. We discussed tonight domestic issues, but I would not want that to be any implication to be given that this does not involve directly our struggle with Mr. Khrushchev for survival.
As Election Day approached, the race remained tight, with the debates playing a key role in making this one of the closest and most suspenseful elections in American history. The debates gave Kennedy the crucial edge he needed. On Election Day, November 8, 1960, Kennedy was declared the winner with 303 electoral votes to Nixon's 219. But the popular vote was extraordinarily close, with Kennedy leading Nixon by just 0.17%, a margin of 112,827 votes out of nearly 69 million cast. In Nixon's home state of California, Kennedy initially appeared to have won by 37,000 votes, but once absentee ballots were counted, Nixon narrowly took the state by 36,000 votes. Accusations of voter fraud surfaced, particularly in Illinois and Texas, where the margins were razor-thin. Had Nixon won these 2 states, he would have secured the presidency. Adding to the drama, Alabama and Mississippi electors cast protest votes for Senator Harry Byrd in defiance of Kennedy's stance on desegregation, signaling the shifting political dynamics in the South. Despite the controversy and narrow popular vote victory, John F. Kennedy became the 35th President of the United States, while Richard Nixon was left to contemplate one of the closest losses in American history. With a 303-219 Electoral College defeat and a near tie in the popular vote, Nixon's loss was a bitter one. Kennedy entered the White House at the height of the Cold War, facing immediate challenges such as Castro's Cuba and the Berlin Crisis, which required a firm stance against the USSR. His leadership would later define key moments like the Cuban Missile Crisis. But tragically, Kennedy's life was cut short by an assassination that forever altered the course of American history. His untimely death sparked a wave of conspiracy theories that endure to this day, making him one of the most iconic figures of the era. Fascinated by Kennedy's rise? Want to know more about the man behind the presidency? Click on the next video to explore the life of John F. Kennedy, from his early days to his time in the White House.